this for the film.
Yeah. Good morning. Welcome to our budget work session. Glad everybody on the council is here except for two who are busy. We're going to ask for an adoption of the agenda motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Ed. A second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're going to move on. Ella has been working diligently on our budget for 2021, and I'm going to let her present it to all.
Okay. I sent you all my talking points yesterday afternoon, but I'll just go over them briefly, and if y'all got questions to ask, I'll be glad to see if I can answer those for you. This is the 2021 budget, and as you know, I have to go through and list estimates as far as what we've done for the year, and I also have to give some idea where we're moving forward for next year. And as of right now, the revenue, we are proposing that the millage rate remain at 15.608, and that gives us a digest amount of $923,648, and that equates to 59,177.86 per meal. What I'm going to do is just go through revenues and expenditures to give you percentages. I think that's very important to let people know where we're at. So I just want to do that. So I'll start with the revenues, and as everyone knows, our revenues come from our property taxes, and taxes are 92% of our revenues. So just keep that in mind with the current millage rate. And also too, we have charges for services. This is fines, license, permits, etc. That's 2%. Intergovernmental revenue grants like LMIG is one instance, is 3%, and investment earnings, miscellaneous sales of assets, and that kind of thing is another 3%. So that gives you a full 100% for our revenues. Expenditures for the general fund, based on the percentage per department. General government is 29%, police and courts is 36%, fire is 7%, roads is 22%, promotion and tourism is 2%, economic development is 2%, and housing and development is 2%. So that provides you the expenses, the expenditure percentages of the general fund. Also, too, on the general fund, I put in here a couple of line items I would like to address. The general fund, the legislative laptops and Zoom subscriptions are for 2021. That was the expenditure that was a little bit more than normal for this year. Also, election funds for an election in 2021, we always have to budget for election. Even if we don't have it, we can adjust it out when we do our annual budget amendment. Administration, we have an official, an administrative service. We have a little bit more this year because 2019 was not paid in this year. It was not paid in 19, it was not paid until 2020, so that has 19 and 20 in it, and that's why I reduced it for next year. And also too, technical services, I always get asked what that charge is because it's usually $20-something thousand. That is attorney fees. Next is our building and grounds, landscaping by others. This is been increased to $20,000 from $15,000 from the previous year. This also will cover Winding Ridge, Rebel Circle, and Eagle Circle, etc. Maybe some of the smaller entrances as well. We just want to make sure we include those in our landscaping so he can get those beautified and get some beautification done because they're desperate in need of it. The police department consists of a chief and 4 full-time officers providing 24-hour coverage. As you know, that is one part to living here in Sky Valley for such a small community that we do have 24-hour protection. The fire department is 1.36 mils at $80,413. They originally had asked for the 1.5, which we were unable to adhere to since our budget is so tight this year. So that's what we're proposing. Roads also, we have full-time employees, and I noticed some of those numbers went up a little bit this year. We had some people that had not been working full-time, and also too, there are a couple of the employees that did not have insurance last year that will have insurance this year, so I had to include that with the actual budget amounts for 2021.
Because they were part-time, is that?
No, what happens is sometimes some of these employees, they'll get insurance, and then if they don't make the payments, they lose it. So, because we are reimbursing them for their insurance,
Okay.
and we had a couple that did that this year, which made a substantial difference in that insurance. Also too, repairs and maintenance by others, equipment repair cost, that has been increased a little bit because, you know, we've had some backhoe issues and some other things. So I just want to make sure we got a little cushion there, so that's why that one was increased. The special events, we have $5,500 for the fireworks for the July 4th, and also too, I put the money back in for some type of event this fall, spring, whatever, you know, it's decided that will take place. Economic development, advertising includes a $4,000 donation to the marketing fund and website expenses for the full year. We'll have some different costs associated with that, so I wanted to make sure we had enough money for that. That concludes the general fund. Now the water fund, we have revenues. I have not proposed any increases for water or solid waste this year. So the rates will remain the same. And also too, the expenses for the water fund, the technical services was increased due to the age of our wells. I felt like we need to make sure we've got some money set aside to do these repairs as needed. And also there is an expense for small equipment for a shop lift that has been asked for by the department, so we included that as well. Also solid waste, again, no revenue increases, and those expenses are pretty consistent with what they've been the previous year. Is there any questions, comments?
I got one comment about our solid waste. And I agree with putting it in the budget, but we did have an agreement with the county and principal at least, that we would not be charged the tipping fee. Hopefully we keep them to that if delivery ever.
As soon as they take care of SDS, then I think that's what's going to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a
That's a-
substantial savings for
That's an
us.
upside, but not one we can't talk
Guarantee.
guarantee.
Yeah, because we had talked about that even last year for this year's budget, but not having it, we
Yeah,
just had to go ahead and put it in there as I did again this year.
you're right. Yeah, and you're right, Booty. Thank you. Any other questions? I had one and now I can't remember what it was. Housing development, what type of expenditures would go in that?
That's Bob and his.
Oh, that's
department.
Bob, okay.
That's our building inspector.
Bob, okay. Any other?
I'd like to just add a few comments because I
Okay.
applaud Ella for doing a good job of planning our expenditures for next year and keeping the taxes without a tax increase. But maybe just to remind all that over the past 2 or 3 years, we've had some major reductions in our revenues. We lost the vehicle tax. We reduced to $500,000 last year in the revenue. Our court fines are much less now. We're not writing as many tickets as we used to. So all of that is a couple $100,000 over the past 2 or 3 years in revenue that we've
Yes,
lost.
sir, that's correct.
So we just need to kind of keep that in mind as we start looking towards the future. One of the areas that, if Jim Curtis was here, he would point out that we really could use some more help from the Public Works Department. So that's something that we're going to be looking at next year, how we can get there. But in addition to the revenue losses, we've increased our expenses by about $160,000 between the police department, some increases in the fire department. We went up about $30,000 there. We put landscaping back in the budget. So again, and still keeping the same tax base. So we've got a year to work towards how we're going to do the next year. But it was very difficult, I think, for Ella to sort this thing out this year to keep us where we are.
Yeah.
So kudos to you for doing that.
Thank you, I
Amen.
appreciate
Yeah.
that, thank you.
There you go. Great report. And anybody else?
I'm not real sure about the motor vehicle tax. I think I understand that. If a car was bought after 2013, you don't pay the ad valorem tax, you pay that as a title fee. But
Right,
if it was purchased before then, you do pay this ad valorem tax, so that any cars older than that were purchased before 2013, gradually those are going to go away and that motor vehicle tax eventually will just disappear.
it will, but also the state has, I don't know if you've kept up with the new bill that has gone out. The state realized that the cities were losing so much money, and they've come back with an addendum to that House bill because it was so unfair to
They
them.
were-
And they are making adjustments to that. And they're telling us we should start seeing that now. In the next few months, we're gonna see some upticks in that. But not knowing what the percentages were gonna be, I couldn't build them into this budget. But yeah, you are correct. That is what happened with us. It really hit us hard.
When the city first put in ad valorem taxes, they had the option of including motor vehicles or not, and so they decided, okay, we'll include the motor vehicles. Well, the next year when people went to get their car tag, their taxes almost doubled, and they sort of didn't understand and got upset about that. So the city came back and said, okay, we'll give residents a $25,000 homestead exemption, which is pretty darn high. And that was kind of the reason for the high homestead exemption, was because of the motor vehicle
Right.
tax.
That is interesting.
Which is the highest in the state on homestead exemption at $25,000.
So that was,
And that gives each individual about a $400 tax break on the taxes. It is pretty substantial. And I think we have like 92 or 93 people that are actually receiving the
coming up every
homestead
year, I guess.
exemption.
I think we should consider creating a new position on the council, and that would be historian, and then Moody could maybe fill that position, so he can keep us abreast of.
Well, you know, I was down at the Overlook yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and there's a bunch of people there, and people would say, what is that? And I'd say, oh, that's a so-and-so, and then I was just answering all these questions. I thought, I just saw set up a little booth down here.
Yeah.
Informational, yeah.
So maybe I could do that.
That could be part of your job description. And
Maybe
the other-
put a tip jar out.
Any other questions? Great job, Ella. And now, just for the public's information, what is the next process in the budgeting?
Okay, the next thing that we would need to do, if y'all are in agreement with what I have presented here today, is to start advertising the 5-year history and also the public hearing to set the millage rate and also adopt the agenda. My recommendation is to do that November 5th. That would give you your time. Once it hits the paper, it has to be at least 2 weeks. So I would recommend doing a special call meeting on November 5th.
And accomplish all those tasks
And
at
do
the
it
same
all at
time?
once, yes.
How do you all feel about that? And, well, first of all, do we have any changes to our projected budget? We're okay with it? I mean, we can always adjust it as it comes along.
Yeah, I mean,
you know?
you're always gonna have things that are gonna come up that are not included in the budget that you've gotta do, so that's the norm for any municipal government.
You all okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, let's
right, so we'll get those ads. They have to be out next week, so we'll make sure those get out and hit the paper next week.
I know that we had I saw a meeting that was planned for November 5th, but we can kick that back to another time on the 5th. I think the P&Z meeting, he
Right.
wanted to do it on the 5th
Right.
of November, so we could ask him to do it a little later. That'll be fine. Okay, with that, we have another call meeting after this, so do I hear a motion to adjourn this part of the meeting?
So moved.
Okay, second? Any discussion? All right, we're moving on. All in favor? I forgot that.
No, you need to stop it.
Karen needs to ask for a minute.
She needs to reset it
Okay,
and start it again since this is.
yeah, we'll start again.